All right, so welcome in everyone. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into some seriously motivating stuff. We're talking self-improvement, crushing goals, and really embracing this whole power of now.
Yeah.
You ready to unlock some potential?
Absolutely. Sounds pretty intense. What are we working with here?
Well, it all kicks off with this really cool concept of a 90-second cold plunge, but not literally, of course. It's more like a metaphor, right? For tackling anything that just seems super daunting at first.
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this. You're talking about breaking things down into those smaller chunks, right? The more manageable steps.
Exactly. Like instead of one giant leap, it's 3 quick 30-second bursts.
Yeah.
And the sources we've got, they really drive this point home. Like one of them even talks about building a huge YouTube following over years and how it really boils down to those consistent, smaller actions. It makes you realize even massive goals, they're not as intimidating once you break them down.
No, not at all. You don't have to conquer the entire mountain in one go. It's about those footholds, one step at a time. So what else really stood out to you?
There's this one quote that just jumps out at me. The well always goes deeper. There is always more to give. It's like, yes, we often put limits on ourselves without even realizing it, you know?
Oh, it's so true. We hit a point where we think, that's it, we've reached our max. But there's almost always more we can tap into, right? If we just push past those boundaries.
Yeah, totally. And it kind of connects to another really fascinating idea, the Stockdale paradox. Are you familiar with that one?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's all about facing reality, head on, not sugarcoating the tough stuff, but at the same time, having this unshakable belief that you're going to succeed in the end. It's like, yeah, you acknowledge that cold plunge is going to be rough, but you're going to reach the other side.
I love that. Okay, so that's the mindset part. But how do we actually make it happen? How do we stop procrastinating and actually take action?
Well, that's where this whole power of now really comes in. The sources are very clear about not waiting for that perfect moment. It's not about everything magically aligning. You've got to use what you have right now. Just take that first step, even if it's imperfect,
Yeah, it's like how one of the sources talks about setting up this super makeshift studio, right, to start creating content. It wasn't fancy, but it got the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we get so caught up in the planning, in making things perfect, that we never actually start doing.
It's true. So think about it. What's one small step you could take, today, towards a goal you've been putting off? It doesn't have to be huge, just something to get you moving in the right direction.
I love that little challenge. Now, here's another idea that I found really interesting. Choosing your difficult.
Choosing your difficult. Okay, what's that all about?
Well, it's this realization that life's going to throw difficulties at us no matter what. But we actually get to choose which difficult we face. Do we choose the difficult of pushing ourselves towards our goals? Or do we choose the difficult of settling for a life of regret?
Oh, I see what you mean. Are you willing to deal with the discomfort of that cold plunge, knowing that it leads to something better? Or are you just going to stay on the sideline?
Exactly. It's a powerful way to reframe things. And the sources use this cool metaphor of a wavy line to illustrate it.
Wavy line. I like that. So those initial dips, those are actually setting us up for higher peaks later on, right? Those tough moments, that's where the growth happens.
Yeah, exactly. So for everyone listening, what's the difficult you're willing to embrace to get closer to what you want? Hold on to that thought, because we've got even more to unpack in part 2.
That whole idea of choosing your difficult, it really gets you thinking, doesn't it? What are you actually willing to go through to reach those big goals?
Oh, for sure. And, it's a perfect lead-in to what we're going to be talking about next, which is all about finding that unique genius inside each of us. That special something that we all bring to the table.
I like this. I mean, the sources we've got really stress that everyone has talents and passions. It's all about figuring out what yours are and then building a life that actually aligns with them,
Right, exactly. It's like finding your own arena where you can truly shine. But sometimes it can be tough to know where to even start looking.
Well, one of the sources had this really interesting suggestion. It asks, what would you do if money were no object? And I think that question can really help cut through all the noise and get to the heart of what actually excites you.
Oh yeah, I love that. It takes all those practical limitations out of the equation, right? What would you be doing if you didn't have to worry about paying the bills?
Exactly. And the answer can give you some serious clues about where your true passions lie. And once you have a better sense of those passions, it's all about taking ownership of your journey.
So not waiting for like permission or the perfect circumstances. It's about actually stepping up and making things happen.
Absolutely. The sources are really clear on this. It's about ditching that victim mentality and realizing that you have so much more control over your life than you think.
And a big part of that is recognizing and silencing that inner critic, right?
Yeah.
That voice that's always trying to hold us back with doubt and fear.
Oh, yeah. Spot on. One source called it the voice of doubt. It's like it's always whispering reasons why we're not good enough, why we should play it safe. But you know what? The truth is, that voice is often totally wrong.
It's like it's trying to keep us small and comfortable when we're actually meant for so much more.
Exactly. It's scared of that cold plunge, scared of the unknown. But imagine if we actually listened to it all the time. I mean, we'd never take any risks, we'd never try anything new, we'd never really grow.
We'd be stuck in that cage,
Yeah.
forgetting our own power and potential.
And the funny thing is, once you start taking those risks and facing those fears, you realize that they actually weren't as scary as you thought they were.
Yeah, it's like that first step into the cold plunge, right? It might be shocking at first, but then your body adjusts and you start to feel this incredible rush of energy and exhilaration.
Exactly. And that's the feeling that we want to chase, that feeling of pushing past our limits and realizing we're capable of so much more than we ever thought possible.
It's that feeling of unlocking our true potential, right? And the more we do it, the more confident and empowered we become.
And that confidence spills over into everything else, our relationships, our work, our communities.
It's like this ripple effect, starting with self-belief and then expanding outward to impact the world around us.
And you know what's really amazing? One of the sources talks about how this journey of self-discovery and growth can actually help us connect with something bigger than ourselves.
Ooh, that's interesting. What do they mean by that?
Well, it's the idea that as we, shed those limiting beliefs and embrace our authentic selves, we start to tap into this deeper sense of purpose and meaning.
Like we're aligning with our true calling, our unique contribution to the world.
Exactly. It's like there's this universal energy that flows through us when we're living in alignment with our passions and values, and that energy connects us to something so much greater than ourselves.
Whoa, things are getting deep here, but I like it. So how do we actually tap into that energy, that sense of purpose?
The sources really emphasize self-awareness, taking the time to understand yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your values, your deepest desires.
Because if you don't know what your calling is, how can you pursue it?
Exactly. It's like setting out on a journey without a map. Self-awareness is that map. It helps us identify the things that truly light us up, the things that make us feel alive.
And those are the things we should be focusing on, right? The things that challenge us and make us feel like we're making a difference.
Exactly. Aligning our actions with our values and passions. Creating a life that feels authentic and fulfilling, even when it's hard.
It's choosing that difficult that leads us closer to our best selves.
Yeah, you got it. And that journey, it's not always easy. There are going to be setbacks, moments of doubt, times where we want to just give up.
But that's where all those tools we've been talking about come in. The power of now, choosing our difficult, silencing that inner critic, embracing our unique genius. These are the things that help us get through those tough parts and keep moving forward.
And you know what else can really help? Self-love. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but it's powerful.
Tell me more. I'm all about the cheesy stuff if it works.
One of the sources shared the story about a guided breathwork experience, and it just highlights how loving yourself is really the foundation for growth and fulfillment.
Yeah, because if we don't love and accept ourselves, how can we expect to make positive changes and go after our goals, with confidence?
Right. Self-love empowers us to reject all that negativity, break free from limitations, and pursue a life of authenticity and purpose. It's about recognizing our worth, embracing ourselves, even with the flaws.
It's like giving ourselves permission to be human, to make mistakes, to learn, to grow without all that judgment.
And what's interesting is that the source material connects self-love not only to personal well-being, but also to our ability to make a positive impact on the world around us.
I love that. So it's like this ripple effect. It starts with us, and then it goes outward to our relationships, our communities, even the world.
It's a beautiful concept, and it makes you think about how much more we could accomplish if we all prioritized self-love and embraced our own unique potential.
This has given me a lot to think about. I'm feeling inspired to take some time for self-reflection and really dive deep into those questions about my own genius and purpose.
That's awesome. And remember, this journey isn't about reaching some perfect destination. It's about embracing the process of growth and evolution, continually learning, becoming more of who we're meant to be.
So for everyone listening, Take a moment and ask yourself, what small act of self-love can I do today? And how can I bring more of my authentic self into the world? We'll be back with even more in part 3, so stay tuned. All right, so welcome back for the final part of our deep dive. We've been talking about unlocking your potential, all that good stuff. You feeling inspired after parts 1 and 2?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've covered so much ground, like embracing the power of now, choosing our difficult, uncovering that unique genius we all have. It's a lot to process.
It is, and there's one more piece of this whole puzzle that I think is super important to tie it all together, and that's self-awareness.
Yeah, you're right. It's kind of like the foundation for everything, isn't it? Because like you said, how can you take ownership or choose your difficult if you don't know what really matters to you?
Exactly. And one of the sources made this comparison that I thought was really cool. It talked about a lion in a cage.
Oh yeah, I remember that. It was saying that just like a caged lion might forget its true power and instincts, we can get trapped by those limitations too. Those cages we build for ourselves out of doubt and fear.
Yeah. And self-awareness is like that key to unlocking the cage, right?
Yeah.
It helps us remember who we are and what we're capable of.
So how do we actually get better at that? Any practical tips from the sources?
Well, they talk a lot about asking yourself those, tough questions, Like, what are those beliefs that are holding you back? What are those patterns in your life that aren't really serving you anymore?
It's like taking a good, hard look at yourself, the good, the bad, the whole thing, and really trying to understand what makes you tick.
And once you start to get a clearer picture, then you can start making choices that are more aligned with your values and goals.
Right, it's like moving from autopilot to actually designing the life you want. And that takes courage, doesn't it? Because sometimes it means letting go of those old patterns, even if they're comfortable.
And that brings us back to choosing your difficult right. Because sometimes the hardest thing is to face ourselves, those parts of us that we've been avoiding.
Exactly. But think about that lion again. Once it breaks free from that cage, it gets its power back, its freedom. And that's what this is all about. Self-awareness is the key to unlocking our true potential and becoming our most authentic selves.
And you know what's so amazing? When we do that, when we start to live more authentically, it actually makes a difference in the world around us too.
Oh, for sure. One of the sources had that really inspiring story about it. Remember, the one about the father who gave his son a torn-up puzzle of the world?
Oh yeah, the kid put it together super fast.
Yeah.
And when the father asked how he did it, he said he focused on putting the picture of the man together first. And once he did that, the world just fell into place.
It's such a powerful metaphor. It reminds us that when we focus on our own growth, we're not just helping ourselves, we're also contributing to a better world.
It's that ripple effect again, right? When we invest in ourselves, we become better equipped to show up for others and make a positive impact.
And this whole journey of self-improvement, it's not like a one-time thing, it's ongoing,
Oh yeah, definitely. It's not about reaching some perfect destination. It's about embracing the journey of growth and evolution, continually learning and becoming more of who we're meant to be.
And that means giving ourselves permission to mess up sometimes, to stumble and fall along the way.
It's about being kind to ourselves, even when we make mistakes.
Because that's how we learn, We try, we fail, we learn, we try again. It's all part of it.
And the more we do that, the more resilient we become. We learn to bounce back from setbacks, to learn from our mistakes, and to keep moving forward with more confidence.
And eventually those challenges that once felt so big and scary, like that cold plunge, they almost become exciting. They become opportunities to push ourselves, to see what we're really made of.
And that's really what this whole deep dive has been about. We wanted to give you the tools and the inspiration to step into your full potential, to break free from those limitations, and create a life that feels authentic, meaningful, and fulfilling.
So to wrap this whole thing up, what's one thing you hope our listeners take away from our conversation?
I really want them to remember that they already have everything they need to get started. It's not about getting something new, it's about uncovering what's already there inside them.
Perfectly said. It's about recognizing their worth, their unique talents, and their power to grow and change.
It's about taking ownership of their lives, embracing the power of now, and creating a life that's both meaningful and fulfilling.
So what are you waiting for? The invitation's open. Take that first step. Embrace the adventure that's waiting for you. We'll be here cheering you on every step of the way,